The sun rose slowly over the wide land, spreading soft light across the dry fields and distant hills. The young farmer woke up before the sky fully changed color. Just as he did every day, his life was simple and hard. He lived alone in a small wooden house that he had built with his own hands. Around him were endless fields, a river not too far away, and land that felt both peaceful and lonely at the same time. He had come to this place a few years earlier, hoping to start a new life. Back east, life had been crowded and difficult in different ways. Here, the land was rough, the weather unforgiving. But it offered freedom. Every day, he worked from morning until evening, plowing the soil, fixing fences, checking his crops, and caring for the few animals he owned. He did not talk to many people. Settlers lived far apart, and meetings were rare. Most days passed in silence, broken only by the sound of wind, birds, and his own footsteps on the dry ground. That morning, he noticed one of his fences near the river had fallen. Strong winds from the night before had loosened the wooden posts. He took his tools and walked toward the river, not thinking much about it. The river was an important place for him. It gave water to his crops and a quiet space where he could think. He often felt calm there, as if the land itself was listening. As he reached the riverbank, he stopped suddenly. He was not alone. Across the river, a short distance away, stood 3 young women. They were Apache sisters, though he did not know their names yet. They were filling clay containers with water and speaking softly to one another in a language he could not understand. Their movements were careful and natural, as if they belonged to the land more deeply than anyone else he had ever seen. For a moment, no one moved. The farmer's heart began to beat faster. He had heard many stories about the Apache people, most of them told with fear and anger by other settlers. He had never met any of them himself. Seeing them now, real and close, felt different from the stories. They did not look dangerous. They looked cautious, just like him. The sisters noticed him at the same time. Their voices stopped. All 3 turned toward him, their expressions alert but not hostile. They did not run. They did not shout. They simply watched. The farmer slowly lowered his tools to the ground to show he meant no harm. He raised his empty hands slightly, unsure what else to do. His mouth felt dry. He wanted to speak, but he did not know what words would be right. After a long pause, one of the sisters stepped forward slightly. She spoke in broken English, carefully choosing her words. "We never touched a white man before," she said quietly. The sentence surprised him. He was not sure what she meant at first, but he understood the feeling behind it. This moment was new for all of them. Unknown. Uncertain. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he replied slowly. "I'm just fixing my fence." The sisters exchanged glances. They seemed to be deciding whether to believe him. Finally, the same sister nodded once. "We come for water," she said. "Then we go." The farmer nodded back. "That's fine. The river belongs to no one." Those words seemed to ease the tension a little. The sisters relaxed, though they remained watchful. The farmer picked up his tools again, keeping his movements slow and clear. He began working on the fence, aware of their presence but trying not to stare. As time passed, the silence became less heavy. The sounds of water, birds, and wind filled the space between them. The farmer realized that this moment felt important, though he could not explain why. He felt a quiet respect growing inside him. These women were not strangers to the land. They were part of it. When he finished fixing the fence, he wiped sweat from his forehead and stepped back. He hesitated, then spoke again. "If you need help carrying the water, I can help," he said. The sisters looked surprised. After a brief discussion among themselves, one of them nodded. "You help," she said simply. He walked closer, careful not to move too fast. He carried 2 of the containers to a shaded area nearby, where the sisters planned to rest before leaving. The weight was heavy, but he did not complain. When he placed them down, one of the sisters offered him a small piece of dried fruit. He accepted it with a quiet thank you. They sat in silence for a short while. No one knew what else to say, but the silence no longer felt dangerous. It felt thoughtful. Before leaving, the first sister looked at him again. "You live here alone?" she said. "Yes," he answered. She nodded. "Land remembers people," she said. "Be good to it." Then the three sisters gathered their things and walked away, disappearing into the open land beyond the river. The farmer watched them until they were gone. He felt changed, though nothing dramatic had happened. It was a simple meeting, but it stayed with him. As he walked back to his house, he realized that the stories he had heard did not match the reality he had seen. Fear had been taught, but understanding had been earned. That night, as the sun set and the land grew quiet again, the young farmer sat outside his home and thought about the sisters. He wondered if he would see them again. More than that, he wondered what else the land still had to teach him about people, about truth, and about seeing others not as stories, but as human beings. After that first meeting by the river, the young farmer found it hard to return to his old routine without thinking about the three Apache sisters. Their calm faces, careful words, and quiet confidence stayed in his mind while he worked in the fields, repaired tools, and cooked his simple meals. He realized that the land no longer felt empty. It felt shared, even if no one else was visible. Days passed, then weeks. Life continued as usual, but small changes began to appear. Sometimes, when the farmer went to the river early in the morning or late in the afternoon, he noticed footprints near the water. They were not his. He knew they belonged to the sisters. He never followed them. He respected their space, just as they respected his. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered quickly, and a sudden storm broke over the land. Strong wind and heavy rain rushed across the fields, damaging crops and knocking down part of the farmer's storage shed. When the storm finally passed, the land looked tired and wounded. The farmer worked late into the evening, trying to save what he could. His hands were sore, and his body ached, but he did not stop. The next morning, he walked toward the river to collect water. As he approached, he saw the three sisters again. This time, they were not just gathering water, they were trying to fix a small shelter made of branches and cloth that had been damaged by the storm. One side had collapsed, and their supplies were scattered. Without thinking too much, the farmer stepped forward. "I can help," he said. The sisters turned toward him. There was surprise in their eyes, but no fear. The oldest sister studied his face for a moment, then nodded. "You help," she said. They worked together quietly. The farmer used his tools to strengthen the shelter, while the sisters gathered stronger branches and tied them carefully. They did not talk much, but they did not need to. Their actions spoke clearly. By the time the shelter stood firm again, the sun was high, and everyone was tired. The sisters shared food with him, simple, handmade, and full of care. He shared some of his dried bread and water. Sitting together under the open sky, they felt less like strangers. Over time, these meetings became more common. Sometimes it was by chance. Other times, it seemed planned, though no words were used to arrange them. They helped each other in small ways. The farmer fixed broken tools for them. The sisters showed him how to find edible plants, how to read the sky, and how to understand signs in the land that warned of danger or weather changes. Language was still a challenge. They spoke different tongues, and many ideas were hard to explain. But patience filled the gaps. A smile, a gesture, or a shared task often said more than words ever could. One day, the farmer injured his foot while working in the fields. A sharp piece of wood cut through his boot, leaving him in pain and unable to walk properly. He managed to reach the river, where he sat down, feeling frustrated and alone. The sisters appeared not long after. When they saw his condition, they reacted quickly. One of them cleaned the wound using water and herbs. Another wrapped it carefully. Their movements were gentle and skilled, showing deep knowledge passed down through generations. "Rest," one of them said softly. For the first time since he had come to this land, the farmer allowed himself to rest without worry. He trusted them. That realization surprised him. Trust had grown quietly, without promises or agreements. As the days grew hotter, water became harder to find. The river level dropped, and crops struggled. The sisters showed the farmer hidden places where water stayed longer, and taught him how to collect and store it wisely. In return, he shared seeds and showed them how he protected his crops from animals. But not everything was peaceful. One evening, the farmer noticed smoke rising in the distance. It was not from his land or the sisters' shelter. He knew settlers had arrived nearby. New people often brought trouble, fear, misunderstanding, and harsh judgment. The farmer felt a tightness in his chest. He worried for the sisters. When he saw them next, he tried to warn them. "Others are coming," he said slowly. "They may not understand." The sisters listened carefully. Their faces grew serious. "We know," the oldest sister replied. "Land tells us." That night, the farmer could not sleep. He thought about the fragile balance that had formed between his world and theirs. He knew that trust could be broken easily, not by those who built it, but by those who feared what they did not understand. Still, the next morning, the sisters came as usual. They worked together, shared food, and spoke of small things: the weather, the land, the changing season. None of them knew what the future would bring. But they knew this moment mattered. The farmer realized something important then. Trust was not built through big actions or loud words. It grew slowly, through respect, shared effort, and quiet honesty. The land, harsh and beautiful, had forced them to rely on one another, and in doing so, it had brought them closer. As the sun set that day, the farmer watched the sisters walk back toward their land. He felt both hope and worry. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. Survival had taught them more than fear ever could, and that lesson would stay with him for the rest of his life. The change came slowly at first, like a shadow growing longer without anyone noticing. The young farmer felt it in the air, in the way the land seemed less quiet than before. New sounds appeared: distant voices, the echo of tools, the movement of people who did not yet understand the place they had entered. More settlers arrived near the edge of the valley. They built temporary shelters, cleared land without care, and spoke loudly about ownership and control. The farmer kept his distance, but he listened. Their words were sharp and full of fear. They talked about the Apache people as if they were stories, not human beings. Each time he heard this, something inside him tightened. He thought of the three sisters. He thought of their calm faces, their careful work, the way they respected the land. The difference between what he knew and what others believed grew wider each day. When he went to the river, he noticed the sisters were more watchful than before. They arrived quietly and left quickly. Their laughter, once soft and rare, had disappeared. They spoke less. Even the land seemed to listen more closely. One afternoon, while they were gathering herbs, distant voices carried through the wind. The sisters froze. The farmer followed their gaze and saw a small group of settlers moving closer to the river, unaware that they were being watched. The oldest sister spoke in a low voice. "Trouble walks loudly," she said. The farmer nodded. "They don't know you," he replied. "They fear what they don't understand." "That fear hurts," another sister said simply. The farmer felt the weight of her words. He knew it was true. Later that evening, two settlers came to his land. They asked questions: too many, too quickly. They wanted to know if he had seen Apache people nearby. Their tone was not curious. It was demanding. "They pass through sometimes," the farmer said carefully. "You should report it," one of them said. "It's safer." The farmer did not answer right away. He thought about safety. He thought about truth. He realized that these two ideas did not always walk together. "They haven't harmed me," he finally said. "They keep to themselves." The settlers exchanged looks. They were not pleased. "You're being careless," one said. "This land is changing." After they left, the farmer sat alone as darkness fell. He knew that by saying little, he had already chosen a side. The choice did not feel loud or brave, but it felt honest. The next day, He went to the river early. He wanted to warn the sisters. When they arrived, he spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. "More people are coming," he said. "They are afraid. That fear can grow." The sisters listened without interrupting. When he finished, the oldest sister nodded. "We have felt it," she said. "The land feels restless." One of the younger sisters looked at him closely. "You stand between," she said. "That is not easy." He did not deny it. "I only stand where I believe is right," he replied. That day, they worked together in silence, but the silence was heavy. Each of them understood that things could not remain the same for long. A few days later, the tension broke. The farmer was repairing a fence when he heard raised voices near the river. His heart raced. He dropped his tools and ran. When he reached the riverbank, he saw several settlers standing near the water. The three sisters stood on the opposite side, calm but alert. Words were exchanged, sharp and careless. The settlers accused the sisters of taking land and water that did not belong to them. The sisters did not shout. They spoke firmly but quietly. The farmer stepped forward before he fully realized what he was doing. "This river is not owned," he said. "It has been here longer than any of us." The settlers turned toward him, surprised and angry. "You're choosing them over your own people?" one demanded. The farmer felt fear rise in his chest, but he did not step back. "I'm choosing truth," he said. "They've done nothing wrong." The moment felt long and fragile, like glass stretched too thin. Finally, the settlers backed away, muttering threats and warnings. They left, but the damage remained. Afterward, the sisters stood quietly. The oldest one looked at the farmer with a new expression, something close to respect, mixed with concern. "Your path grows narrow," she said. "I know," he replied. "But I won't pretend I don't see what's right." That night, the sisters did not stay long. Before leaving, they spoke together. Then the oldest sister addressed him. "We may move," she said. "Not far, but deeper into the land." The farmer felt a heavy sadness. "I understand," he said. "I wish it were different." "So do we," she replied. In the days that followed, their meetings became fewer. When they did meet, there was warmth, but also distance. The world around them was pressing in, forcing choices that none of them wanted to make. The farmer continued his work, but his heart was restless. He knew he could not protect them from everything. He could only act with honesty when moments appeared. One final time, they met by the river at dawn. The sky was soft with light, and the air was cool. They shared food in silence. No promises were made. None were needed. Before leaving, one of the sisters spoke. "You listened," she said. "That matters." The farmer watched them walk away, knowing this chapter was ending. He felt changed, not by conflict alone, but by the courage it took to stand quietly for what was right. The land slowly returned to its silence, but the farmer knew that silence now carried memory. And memory, he had learned, was a powerful thing. The valley felt different after the sisters moved deeper into their land. Nothing looked changed at first. The river still flowed, the hills still stood quiet, and the wind still moved through the fields, but the young farmer could feel the difference inside himself. The land felt quieter in a way that carried weight, as if something important had passed and left a mark behind. Days turned into weeks. The farmer returned to his routine, but it no longer felt the same. Every morning, he woke before sunrise and worked until the light faded. Yet his thoughts often drifted toward the river. He still went there for water, but the place no longer held the same calm. He remembered the sisters' careful movements, their soft voices, and the lessons they had shared without ever calling them lessons. The settlers nearby grew more settled and more certain. They built stronger shelters, marked land with signs, and spoke often about rules and ownership. The farmer kept his distance. He answered when spoken to but shared little. Some of them looked at him with suspicion now. He knew why, and he accepted it. His silence had become a kind of answer. One evening, an older settler approached him near the fence. "You're different," the man said. "You don't speak like the rest of us." The farmer paused before replying. I listen more now, he said. The man frowned, confused, then walked away. That night, the farmer sat outside his home, watching the stars appear one by one. He thought about how much he had learned without ever leaving the valley. He had learned that fear often came from stories told too many times by people who never looked closely. He had learned that respect could grow between strangers if given patience and space. Most of all, he had learned that silence could be strong when it carried truth. As the season changed, the land tested him again. A long, dry spell arrived, harder than any before. Crops struggled, and the river grew thin. Many settlers complained and argued, but the farmer remembered what the sisters had shown him. He searched for hidden water paths, stored what little he found, and protected the soil with care. His crops survived when others failed. People noticed. Some settlers began asking him for advice. At first, he was careful. He shared only what he felt was right, never claiming knowledge as his own. He spoke of patience, of reading the land, of taking only what was needed. Some listened. Others laughed and walked away. That did not trouble him anymore. One early morning, while walking near the edge of the valley, the farmer noticed signs he recognized, small markers in the earth, placed with meaning. His heart lifted slightly. The sisters were nearby. Even if he could not see them, later that day, as the sun dipped low, he saw them again. They stood across the river, just as they had the first time. For a moment, none of them moved. Then the oldest sister raised her hand in greeting. He did the same. They did not cross the river. They did not need to. You live well, the oldest sister said. I live differently, the farmer replied. She nodded. The land teaches those who listen. They spoke briefly, sharing small updates. The sisters were safe. They had found a place where the land still felt open. They would keep moving when needed, just as they always had. Before leaving, the youngest sister looked at him and said, "You will remember." "Yes," he said. "I will." They turned and walked away, their figures slowly blending into the land. The farmer watched until they were gone, feeling neither sadness nor joy, but something deeper, acceptance. Years passed. The valley changed, as all places do. More people came. Roads formed. The quiet stretched thinner, but it never disappeared completely. The farmer grew older. His hair turned gray, and his hands grew rougher, but his eyes stayed clear. He became known as a fair man, someone who spoke little but acted carefully, someone who did not rush to judge. Children sometimes asked him about the land, and he told them stories not of fear or conflict, but of listening and respect. He never spoke the sisters' names, not because he forgot them, but because some stories belonged to the land itself. On his last strong summer, the farmer walked to the river one final time. He sat by the water and let his fingers touch the cool surface. The wind moved softly through the grass, just as it had years ago. He smiled. The meeting that had once felt small had shaped his entire life. It had taught him that real change did not always come with noise. Sometimes, it came quietly, through shared work, honest choices, and the courage to see others as they truly were. As the sun set, the land held its silence. And in that silence, lived memory, respect, and the quiet truth that understanding, once learned, never truly fades.